What is going on, guys? This is Daniel, and Game 5 was certainly one of the best finals games in recent memory, as the Heat squeaked out one against the Lakers. And in today's video, I want to talk about the Heat's offense. In Game 5, they had a good 118 offensive rating, which was a big improvement over their offensive rating in Game 4. So in today's video, let's look at a few reasons why that was the case. First off, in Game 4, the Lakers' big adjustment was putting Davis on Butler, and this had a big effect. Davis's length bothered Butler, and Butler only had 22 points. And so in Game 5, one of the big things the Heat did was change how they set ball screens for Butler. First, a clip from Game 4. Here, Crowder sets a ball screen for Butler as he's being guarded by KCP, and so the goal here is to possibly get a switch. And notice how Crowder sets this screen close to a 90-degree angle with his body facing the sideline. And this allows KCP to show pretty easily, and Davis can duck under that pick, and the Lakers contain the pick and roll. And on the rescreen, we see the Lakers are again ready with their show and under strategy. Whereas in Game 5, it was clearly a point of emphasis to set these screens at a flatter angle. And here we see Crowder sets a flat screen with his body facing toward half court. And so now it's harder for Davis to go under the pick, and Crowder makes good contact, which forces a switch. This time it's Hero who sets the flat screen, and that allows Butler to come off and get a bit of space for a jumper. Here, this is a pretty good show by Kuzma to get all the way out there, but a really nice screen by Crowder making good contact, and Butler is able to come off and create a shot inside for Bam. So what we've seen is one of the big advantages of the flat screen is it makes it harder for the on-ball defender to go under, which by the way is a concept the Lakers use well with Rondo. With his pick and roll here, notice how Davis sets a flat screen, making it tough for Duncan Robinson to go under, and this is a really good concept. And the flat screen can also make it tough on the defender who's going to show. Here, for instance, Crowder makes it very ambiguous which way he'll set that screen. The screen is mostly going to be flat, but he still has to set it to one of the two sides. And here, at the last second, he sets it so Butler drives right, but Kuzma was expecting the screen towards the left, and so now Butler can drive with no show and find Bam. And we saw something very similar on one of the most important plays of the game. 22 seconds left in the fourth, Heat down 1, and we see Crowder comes to set the ball screen, but it's totally unclear which way he'll set that screen. And here, when he sets that flat screen, really Butler can drive in either direction. But Morris shows to Butler's right, so it's an easy read for Butler to drive left. And again, Butler gets downhill. Also, on this play, notice how they got it to Butler high out on top. So whichever direction he drove, he would be going north-south. Whereas here's a clip from Game 4 where he starts out on the side, and with these screens at a 90-degree angle, he's really going east-west. He has to deal with the show, and only now can he really look to go downhill. But in Game 5, putting him out on top and using these flat screens was a good use of Butler, an aggressive downhill driver. And so the Heat came into Game 5 with good counters to try to get AD off of Butler. And another thing they did was have Crowder set those hard screens, whereas in Game 4, they used more slips, which weren't that effective. And from the Lakers' perspective, it'll be interesting to see how they adjust, because there were plenty of plays in Game 5 where the show was effective and they were able to contain the play. But Butler had 35 points, and these ball screens were a big reason why, and the Lakers' communication needs to be better, and they can also do a better job of maneuvering through these screens. So here, the flat screen gets Davis stuck because he's trying to go under, so in Game 6, I'd expect him to be a bit more comfortable reading this and understanding the right play is to go over so he can recover to Butler faster. Next, I want to talk about Duncan Robinson's impact, because if we want to talk about why the Heat won Game 5, he was a huge reason why, with 26 points, going 7 for 13 from 3. And let's first take a look at some of the plays where he got open himself. Robinson killed the Lakers with his elite ability to relocate off ball, And here, with the ball along the baseline, Robinson does a good job of executing the baseline drift and getting to the corner, and this is good offense, but a bad job by Danny Green to fall asleep. You can see how disciplined Robinson is with this concept. On the first baseline drive, he goes from the wing to the corner looking for the pass. He doesn't get it here, but then later on the possession, Butler will drive baseline, and again, Robinson does a good job of making himself available for the pass. And if you're thinking this is terrible defense, you're correct. KCP stays alert on the first drift, but then he totally falls asleep on the second drift, and while the Lakers played hard defensively, they had some key lapses that cost them the game. And this is a great play here. 3:30 left, it's crunch time, and Butler pounds the ball, but Robinson doesn't just stand still. As Butler drives right, Robinson relocates behind the drive, KCP and Caruso bump into each other, and it's an open three. And in the third quarter, Nunn did something very similar. As Butler dribbles it into the post, Nunn recognizes the open space, and so he'll sprint to it, and just by being active off ball here, Nunn is able to draw the attention of two defenders, and it frees up the 4-point play. And the Lakers in this series have done a really nice job of limiting Robinson off screens, but he was able to get open some in Game 5. And here's a play in the first half where in early offense Robinson comes off screens, but this is something you rarely see, a triple screen. And this may have been accidental by the Heat, but regardless, it works as Robinson weaves through the players like traffic cones. The Heat love this action right here, where they get it to Bam at the high post, and then Robinson will get a pin down into a dribble handoff, and he makes a ridiculous shot. Here's an after timeout set, and this play has become quite popular in the NBA, where Robinson looks like he's setting a back screen, but in fact he fakes the back screen and then comes for the dribble handoff. I love this replay. Caruso is physical, but as he's complaining to the ref, Robinson slips out of that back screen and Caruso pays the price for arguing. And I think most people understand this, but the thing about Robinson and other great shooters is that even when they're not hitting shots, they have such a positive offensive effect because of the gravity they possess. So here for instance, Robinson comes for the handoff, and he attracts the attention of two defenders, allowing Bam to fake the handoff and go to the rim. And the Heat are able to leverage Robinson's gravity with his off-ball movement, but also with smart coaching. And here, this is a play where they have a pick and roll with two players on the strong side, and they'll put Robinson on the weak side, and this is a single side tag pick and roll. And this is a good way to use Robinson because KCP is typically supposed to help on the roll man Adebayo, but because he's guarding Robinson, he stays attached, which allows Bam to catch it on the roll. And I'd say with that Game 5, he's having a pretty nice finals. 13 points per game, and most importantly, when he's on the court, the Heat score much better with his spacing and gravity. And even with his defensive limitations, he has a positive plus-minus, a +10 for the series. And the bottom line is, the Heat are a really tough team to defend. They have shooting, Butler is playing great, and I haven't talked about it much in this video, but they do a really good job of sharing the ball and playing when the play breaks down. So here, for example, it's off an offensive rebound, but notice how Iguodala nicely screens away for Hero, and all of a sudden, just like that, they're in a good high post action. And the other big factor in Game 5 was the Heat rebounded 26.7% of their own misses, which is in the 71st percentile and notable because it's by far their best offensive rebounding rate this series, and this will be one of the factors to keep an eye on as the Lakers look to clean up their defense in Game 6. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.